Is live service the option that PlayStation has at the current moment? Let's go ahead and take a very close look at what all of this is about. An audience member of mine came out with a contention against my statements where I've said that PlayStation needs a live service game. And there's a reason I said that, because they need the recurring revenue to be able to invest in their single player games. They've always leveraged the recurring revenue from these top live service games and have invested them in their single player games. But now they're looking for something, because the reality is the PlayStation fans, y'all are not buying these games at impressive percentage points. In fact, remember, a couple of fools basically came out here and finally did the math that I've been doing for months now, since 2023, telling y'all that the percentage of PlayStation consoles out there to the percentage of the copies that you guys are buying is quite mediocre. And this is one of the reasons that PlayStation is like, all right, how are we going to go ahead and leverage growth in the industry? The audience member of mine said, as I've told you in the past, live service is not Sony's forte. I'd have to argue with you against that, because I'm seeing Helldivers 2 on the top 5, top 10 charts consistently on PC. How do you reconcile that? If you say it's not Sony's forte, you mean to tell me that if Sony makes a good live service game that is not antithetical to what their audiences will play, you mean to tell me people are going to patronize it? In fact, I know you've always had issues with this data set. Whenever I cite the top games played, you usually tell me, and this audience member of mine, we usually have these discussions about data. You usually tell me that you cannot correlate the time played with the revenue. Of course. However, if you just go and do a little bit of looking to find on Steam where they give you the top selling games or top grossing games that year, in 2024, Helldivers 2 was basically one of the top grossing games in Steam in the platinum category. Xbox, except for Call of Duty, did not have a game in this category in 2024. There's Destiny 2 also charting there and has also charted the previous year. So again, when you say that's not Sony's forte, I think I don't know what this is about. Let's keep reading though, because I want to kind of understand more of what you're saying. You said you seem to believe in previous years that the magic sauce in the industry, that this is the magic sauce in the industry at this moment. I don't think so. I'm just telling you from a perspective of them being able to make money like their competitors are. They want to go ahead and get a live service game that sticks. We saw from the Sony leaks, and this is the thing I've been telling y'all. Y'all were arguing with me when I said, hey, look at these, leaks about where their position is in the industry. Remember the Jez Corden article? We already saw in the leaks that they have a bunch of games planned out all the way through 2026 with the Marvel, Spider-Man, franchise. They have a Carnage game. They have a Venom game coming. Then they have an X-Men game, which they want to then make a live service game. So they have single player games in the pipeline. They just showed Intergalactic and all these other games. They're not abandoning single player games. They are just in a position where everybody else is raking in money on their platform. And look at Helldivers 2 sitting here on the bottom here. And they want to go ahead and leverage that kind of money, of which they're leveraging that kind of money right now, even on Steam. So when you say Sony seems to believe this too, and this is easy logic, which is flawed, it doesn't correlate with the data and the reality. You can make a good live service game. As much as I don't play live service games and whatnot, I play single player games. At least I know exactly where the source of the single player funding comes from. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, live service game evil, blah, 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 when in reality, these are the games that have basically paid for the single player games that I've enjoyed playing at the end of the day. And it's just business. Now, where I have a problem is when these games will go ahead and continue to go ahead and, try to take advantage of kids like, Genshin Impact and Fortnite, how they did back in the day. That's where I have a problem. And that's why everybody should have a problem. So you said Sony can simply benefit from live service by solely being one of the largest platforms to host them and get 30% of sales. Okay. Maybe or maybe not. When I say maybe, perhaps if they push maybe another 30 more units of the PS5, perhaps that might work. But here's the problem. Your math and your analysis, as sound as it may seem on the first run, is not taking into account the fact that cost of game development has gone up. Consider a game like Ghost of Tsushima. Reportedly, Ghost of Tsushima cost PlayStation around $60 million to develop with Sucker Punch. Today, If they want to develop another game like Ghost of Tsushima, full game, brand new IP that they're going to rock for 6-8 years in development, you can kiss $60 million goodbye. You have to look at possibly 80 on a cheap end for this company. And we've seen from inside the Insomniac leaks, $315 million. A very expensive enterprise. So even if they may be able to live off the 30%, which they've done for the most part, that's what they did in the last few generations. Those games were making a lot of money and they were, siphoning it into their ecosystem to make games. The problem that they're facing right now is the simple fact that cost of developing games have increased significantly. And you said, and to do that, they need to do what they do best, what they've done already, make the mostly great first-party single-player games. Where are they going to get the money from? Where are they going to get the money from? The same live services that are bringing in 30% for them while the cost of developing games are going up. They really don't have access to that kind of cash. You see, when you were basically dismissing a lot of those leaks that came out, I was laughing because a lot of those leaks literally had Sony's own position on how they can leverage content from their partners, because Game Pass was something that was very strong in terms of a, side-by-side comparison of their subscription services. They wrote it in there in their little internal document that they didn't have the kind of money to do a lot of the things they wanted to do. They are limited on cash. Not only that, their top studios that make these games, they're sitting on them for 6 to 8 years. Bro, if you go look at, say, Nib, where he pulled that data out from and was showing the sales and everything, the same place that everybody was telling y'all to go look, you'll notice that the sales of these single-player games, they taper off by year 2 by almost 50%. That is not a sustainable way for them to keep raking in money because it's not enough for them. So they're looking for ways to be able to leverage it. I sound like a Sony apologist, which is insane, but this is how business works. This is exactly how business works. And if they cannot come to terms with the fact that this is the direction that they need to go, but they need to amend their own business practices, for example, open up the floor for their games to go on Xbox, open the live service games. Well, they're taking Marathon to Xbox anyways. Open up the floor for people to play these games on Steam without requiring an extra PSN account. They're going to have to sit there and basically hold L's, or at least make the games appealing to people who want to play them. Exclusivity is not doing any good for them, especially in the live service area. So they have to choose one. They cannot do full-blown, we're going to sit here and be exclusive, because they're not exclusive anymore. They got to succumb to the PC players' demands with the PSN requirement, or open it to more countries out on Steam, right? Make sales, or they bring it to Xbox with the live service games. If not, the next live service game that they're going to bring out, they already showed in Concord, PC players already showed they're not interested in any PlayStation games anymore, as long as PlayStation continues to require that, that sign in. So the business, the business idea is actually really weird right now for PlayStation. You say games people can't simply miss. Well, people are waiting for these games and they're taking time to come out. That way, even Xbox will keep launching their games to PS. Doesn't really resonate that way. Sony pulling back from these live service games is a sign they finally get it. Pulling back from what live service games? You know what's actually surprising, ladies and gentlemen, and this is one thing about my fellow PlayStation fans whenever we're talking about this stuff. They said they wanted to launch 12 live service games by fiscal year 2026. They didn't say they were only developing 12 live service games. Do you see how the fine print can be very, very tricky at the end of the day? Which means that they are still intending to bring more live service games. I do not think, this is my opinion, that PlayStation is backing down from bringing more live service games to the market. I just think at this moment, they're hemorrhaging cash so fast, they have to backtrack and then reorganize, reassess what the market wants, and go back in again. Marathon is still in development, but they canceled Project Gummy Bears, which was the other game that was coming up in Bungie's incubator. That was going to be in like a Brawlhalla type, game. They canceled Ben Studios, whatever, Blue Point's God of War live service game. But at the same time, when you think about it, Fair Games is still being developed. And then there's the Horizon live service game as well. So there are 3 live service games in the pipeline. 2 already have been released. So that's 5. Then they went ahead and announced all these cancellations. Who knows what other live service games are still in the works or are still under wraps? Because for crying out loud, who would have thought that Blue Point was making even a live service game, and a God of War live service game for that matter? So it could be anybody making a live service game. So I think at the end of the day, they're just waiting for one of them or a few of them to stick within their own terms, and that's what it is. But here's the problem again. Development costs of these live service games are also very high. So the question is PlayStation going to be able to stick with 30% in a traditional sense? Because you said this, and a great sign for PlayStation players, that PlayStation will still be leading consoles where to play games. Not if they don't have any games by the end of this generation. Let me tell you something. A lot of gamers, they live in FOMO. That's how they run. Many of them like the thing that's happening, and that's how many companies sell many copies of video games, by the way. They go by hype and all this stuff. The moment Xbox dumps its 2025 catalog, people are going to be rethinking how they're going to approach the PS6 generation, because at the end of the day, it's all about the games. And if PlayStation cannot leverage games as fast as Xbox can, because Xbox actually can and is, they're going to have to deal with the fact that some of their own gamers are more than likely going to switch camps. Another thing too is if their gamers start to think about the next generation, they're also going to have to think that Call of Duty is now on Xbox. It's now basically Xbox's own thing. So they have many pulls and many draws to basically go ahead and pretty much check that whole PlayStation being the place where they're doing that. That's not the case anymore. If there's a place where you want to actually be, enjoy as a gamer, in my opinion anyways, it's the PC platform. Nobody tells you what to do. You do what you want to do. It's the Renegade platform at the end of the day. Now, it's not for everyone. Some people prefer consoles, but again, there's no inherent unique side of the consoles at this moment anymore. Thanks for watching the video. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.